What is going on, everyone? Mets Talk with Hayden here. What's going on, everyone? I hope everyone is doing extremely well today. I am most certainly doing well today. And I am back with my fellow co host, Blake, the Braves fan. He stepped away just for a couple seconds just to take care of some business. But we are here with season 2, episode 11 of the Long Ball podcast. And in today's episode, we are going to be covering the American League West and the National League West in regards to standings, predictions, and kind of on top of that, during it, we're going to give a little bit of an analysis in regards to each team, talk about their pitching staff, their offense, their strengths and weaknesses, and so many other contributing factors to why we think those American League and National League West teams are going to finish where they are. This is by far a very interesting division. I think a year ago from today, I mean, everyone would have said, "Oh yeah, these are two simple divisions." Dodgers and Astros all the way, but you could definitely make an argument for both of these teams. I mean, both of these divisions have gotten increasingly much more superior and better this offseason, whether that's teams like the Rangers, um, the San Diego Padres, the San Francisco Giants, heck, even the Arizona Diamondbacks. So it's going to be a fun episode. Blake will be back in just a couple of seconds. So I will give him his time to do what he needed to do. But yeah, obviously, baseball is almost here. We are currently less than 1 week away from the opening day for Major League Baseball. So we're going to see, the Mets taking on the Marlins, the Yankees taking on the Giants. It's going to be a really fun day. It's going to be elite, super, super amped up. I'll tell you, this offseason flew by. No doubt about it. This offseason flew by quite a lot. And I don't know, maybe that's because there was no COVID, no lockout, none of that foolish nonsense this offseason. And we were just able to have a regular offseason. Everything was able to ride out. You had a lot of free agents signed, in the early parts of the offseason and November and December. And then, coming January, February, it got a little quiet. A lot of the big guys, the big four shortstops and Judge and DeGrom and all the other elite pitchers have already signed and were extended, of course. So, that's really it in regards to the offseason. That is in the books. But right now, the MLB season is coming started. So, while Blake is away, I guess I may as well go over my fifth place team for the American League West. And obviously, going into that, I'm going to start off with the Oakland Athletics. And boy, this Athletics team is pretty darn bad. Um, they have one of the worst rotations in baseball, a lineup that looks equally dismal. Ace fans are in for a really rough season, stuck in the basement of a strong division. And I think it's a pretty safe bet that this team is going to lose 100 plus games this season. I have no doubt in my mind that the Oakland A's are going to. I mean, this is a team that's ranked 29th in starting pitching, 30 in offense, and 30th overall out of 30 teams. So the numbers really kind of just bleak the scenario here. They don't have much contention, don't have much to go on. This is a cheap team, cheap ownership. I mean, we could sit on here all day and discuss why the Oakland Athletics should just sell the team, move to Vegas, move to Nashville. This is a disaster of a ball club. If I'm an A's fan, I just boycott the season or something because it's a disaster, no doubt about it. Um, yeah, Oakland Athletics fans, unfortunately, you got a couple prospects or some guys in the mix. You brought in Jesus Aguilar, decent veteran role. Um, if you could even call him a veteran, I guess you could. He's 32 compared to all these other young guys. You have a couple other guys like Nick Allen, Seth Brown, Tony Kemp, Jace Peterson. Nothing too crazy there. Still have Ramon Laureano. He's rolling around. Christian Pache. He could definitely be a decent guy for them down the line. Shea Langoliers, DH, not horrible. Moving on to some of the pitching, they did sign Trevor May. Not expecting a whole lot from him. Obviously, you move around. You got James Kaplerian, Paul Blackburn, who was the lone all-star last year. I mean, by far, this is just a team that's going to finish horrible. I mean, I would not be surprised if this Oakland Athletics team, goes something around the lines of like 58 and 104. So, with that said, I have the Oakland Athletics coming in fifth place in the American League West. And with that said, our boy Blake is back. Blake, just I know how to take care of some business. I just did a little introduction and just went over my Oakland Athletics take, who I believe is going to finish fifth in the American League West. So I'll hand the floor to you, Blake. How are you doing? What's going on? And who do you have finishing in fifth place in the American League West?
I don't think argument to it. It's got to be the Oakland have the payroll in baseball history. So it was once upon a time very storied. Lots of pennants, lots of tradition, lots of winning. Even before the Moneyball movie became a thing, they were always a team. Them and the Giants were always a great show in the Bay for many years, and they played in a couple of World Series against each other. So it's very sad to see that this has to be the end of Chad Schrader saying negative Nancy. I think Mitch is if he's actually very much a realist. That's a whole different story. But one line I did see today is former Braves prospect Kyle Muller is going to be tossing it on opening day for the Oakland Athletics today. And I wouldn't be surprised if his battery mate was Braves prospect Shane Langolier. So Oakland, you're welcome. And yeah, I think this is going to be a really early year. I kind of heard a little bit of what you were saying right when I got back. How, yeah, they maybe have a couple trade deadline moves that they could bring in a couple more prospects, kind of like they had keeping Montas last year, keeping Sean Murphy till this offseason, just to kind of deal out some of their prospect growth. But I mean, it's weird how they're going to end up carrying three catchers again. Last year they had Stephen Vogue, Sean Murphy, and Shane Langoliers. It looks like they're going to be doing the same thing with Langoliers, Pena, and another McCann catcher, Kyle McCann. Jesus Aguilar, Tony Kemp, Lemus Diaz, they did steal from Houston. That could be fun. Jace Peterson came over from Milwaukee. Nick Allen's a prospect you just haven't seen a lot of anything from yet. JJ Balday, Christian Pache, Mr. Roids himself, Roman Laureano. I mean, you said from the pitching market, it's really not much either, except for your guy Trevor May. Out of the bullpen, JP Sears. Just a really, really bad team. Really, if you're looking at this team on the schedule for 4 games, you need to take at least 3. If you see 3 on the schedule, you got to win them all. And that's what this team is going to be used for. And I hope we've had this discussion before. I hope they end up in Vegas sometime soon, so the Raiders fans that are already there rejoice and they find a better home for the future. Because Oakland sports are dead. The Warriors moved to San Fran. The Raiders Vegas and Oakland A's follow suit. Yeah, ugly situation, indeed. I'm sure you had a long enough monologue on them. We'll move on to fourth place in the American League West. I think this might be our first crossroad of this Western preview episode. Who do you have in fourth, Hayden? Muted. My brother in Christ, you are still muted.
My apologies. Yeah, so coming in fourth place in the American League West, my apologies there. I have the Texas Rangers. This is a team that spent a lot of money this offseason, last offseason. Was one of the highest payrolls in baseball the last 2 seasons. Crazy to say, but I still think they have a lot of gaps, a lot of holes, and I still don't think this is a complete enough roster to be on a playoff contention team. And with that said, I have them going 70 and 92. You know, like I said, you take a look at that Texas Rangers roster. You have a couple nice additions to that pitching staff. You have Jacob deGrom, you have Nathan Eovaldi, you have Andrew Heaney, Will Smith, just to name a couple of the few. You know, Ironically, they're still ranked decently, relatively low on the pitching market. That could be because of their bullpen, is what I'm assuming. So I guess you kind of still have a little gap with that. Couple other guys, prospect wise in the mix, of course. But yeah, I mean, you also could include guys like Jake Odorizzi, Glenn Otto, John Gray, Dane Dunning. I've been a big fan of him, been a huge proponent of him, Florida native. So we'll see how their pitching does. Obviously the big question is going to be DeGrom. Is he going to be healthy? Is he capable of being the ace of this rotation? Is he going to go out there and you know go out there every 5 days? When was the last time he did that? 2019. It's a while ago. Or is he going to go out there and pitch great for the months of April and the beginning of May, and then get sidelined and then just shut down for the rest of the season? And anything's possible. I'm not going to say the Texas Rangers are in a good spot with DeGrom until I see him go out there for every 5 days this year. And listen, it's fine if he misses a start or two, but when was the last time this guy has made 30 starts in a season? So you have that on board. Offensively, I don't think they're a horrible team. I mean, behind the plate, you have Jonah Heim, one of the best defensive catchers in baseball, in my opinion. Taking a little look around the field, you have Nathaniel Lau, who, in my opinion, I think is one of the most underrated guys in the game today. Great contact, high average, high on base percentage guy. I think he's capable of secretly breaking out, having an all-star caliber season. Moving around, you have Josh Jung, one of their big top prospects at third base. We'll see. Is he most likely can win the opening day spot? I haven't heard anything yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does make the opening day roster. And then obviously you have the two other guys in Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, your second baseman and shortstop. And, both of those guys didn't do great last year. Seager was okay, hit for some power, low average, low on base percentage, decent OPS because of some of his power, but really struggled his first year. And, I'm hoping he'll have a bigger bounce back here. I just think it was just a way to get acclimated to being in a new game, new place. And then you have Marcus Semien, who, everyone says, "Oh my God, his numbers are so bad." Well, I think a lot of that was generated from the beginning of the season, because you look what Semien did last year. In the first half, he was horrible. I don't agree. I think he was one of the worst players in baseball in the first half. And then he really broke out in the second half and kind of got his numbers up a little bit. 26 home runs. I think before the All-Star break, I don't even think he had double digits. Or if so, I think he just barely had it. So, he definitely broke out there quite a little bit. So, I think Semien could definitely have a much better season than last year. You go to the outfield, you have a utility guy like Brad Miller. Like, he could be a decent guy. Robbie Grossman, we'll see what he could do. Dolis Garcia, he had a phenomenal season last year, 2021 also. I think he's a guy who could, if he could, gets hot, I think he can give you 40 home runs. I think anything is possible. So, still, the Rangers seem to be going all in, trying to make themselves contenders, but I just don't think this is a complete enough roster to go out there and say they are. I think they have a lot of young stars, a lot of young guys, a lot of young hitters who could definitely make an impact this season. But I just think there's a lot of questions, with Seager, with Semien, with DeGrom, with the rest of that rotation, including that bullpen. So I just don't think they really stand a chance. So, yeah, I have them finishing in fourth place, probably going 70 and 92.
For me, I don't have the Rangers in fourth. I actually have a team that continues to disappoint every single year in the eyes of most guys in the major leagues. Also, Hayden, check your private chat if you get a second. There you go. I hate to do this because with the expanded playoff format, having the two best players in baseball, who we just saw end the World Baseball Classic, in historic fashion, it's amazing. It shows how much of a team game baseball is. My fourth place team in the American League West is the Los Angeles Angels. I'm not buying into them anymore. And if I'm wrong, cool. But every year, I pick them to be first or second, well, more second or third, behind Houston or somebody else in that American League West. And they always disappoint. They always come crash into the bed, and they're never that good. So, sure, they made some moves this offseason. We talked about them on, the most recent American League recap episode. They finally got some pitching prospects that are a year or two away, being that they had a whole draft where they had 18 to 2 position prospects. That was interesting. But I feel like a lot of the guys they're trying to tap into were all 1 or 2 year wonders, and you're going to have to see if you can keep the voodoo magic that Adam had for years in Anaheim. And Anaheim is a place where a lot of people have known that you die as a baseball player, at least not in Hollywood. Rob says they should be called the Anaheim Angels since they're located. Yeah, maybe that would fix a lot of their curses if they went back to being called the Anaheim Angels. I don't know. But I mean, if you look at the rotation, right, you got Shohei. I'm not absolutely certain if Tyler Anderson is going to be able to keep doing what he did just because of how fluky a lot of it seemed last year being with with the Dodgers. Sandoval looks great. He tossed some big innings for the Mexican team in the WBC. I like what he's able to do. Keep building on what Reed Detmers did last year. I mean, it's a very lefty heavy rotation. So that's a little interesting to see. Tucker Davidson is a former Braves prospect. I don't think he's very good. I think he should stick to TikTok. That's my opinion on him. But Detmers, you gotta continue to see what he did in the second half last year or the month of April where he threw the combined no-hitter. Bullpen wise, they got the former Met legend Aaron Loop out there throwing 100 miles an hour now. So that's something that, I didn't expect, but that's cool to see. Matt Moore, Jaime Barria. I mean, if it goes bad, a couple guys that you could trade for some prospects. They got three catchers listed on their 40-man: Max Stassi, Matt Tice, and Logan O'Happy. Of course, Kurt Suzuki finally did retire. They bring over Brandon Drury and Gio Urshela, trying to continue to tap into the great years they had last year. I mean, people kind of forget about David Fletcher, and they paid him big money opening week 2021, so that's not too great for their point of view. And also Anthony Rendon, who, when he's been healthy in LA, has not been bad, but has never been that healthy, and is another contract that looks like a complete, utter waste of $200 million for that organization, something that they just can't afford. Joe Adell, Mickey Moniak, one of those guys fighting it out for a future outfield spot. I mean, guys that have been prospects. I mean, Rob, you and I talked about Mickey Moniak in the group chat the other day. Guys that have been continually fighting that prospect, major league level for a couple of years and haven't figured it out. This could be a make or break year for them, along with guys like Jared Kelenic around the league, who we'll talk about in a little bit. You got Mike Trout. You got Hunter Renfroe, his doppelganger. Of course, Shohei Ohtani. So, I mean, the team is going to be hard to beat on a night-to-night basis, but over 162 games, I just don't trust them. That's why I have them in fourth place. I'm done buying into them. I'll be happy if I'm wrong, but that's where I'm at with the Angels. So I guess time for your Angels monologue, who I'd guess you have in third, before I give my spiel on the Rangers. Back to you, Hayden. Hopefully your mic is fixed.
Yeah, so coming in to third place, I have the Anaheim Angels. Big surprise. Oh my goodness. And yeah, I have the Angels going 79-83. So I can't remember where they went exactly last year, but I'd say that's probably maybe a little bit better than what many Anaheim Angels fans or MLB fans would expect. And I think it's absolutely sad that the Angels boast two of the top players in baseball in Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, but yet they play in a roster that hasn't been a contender for quite a long time. Two of the best players in baseball, and you can't even finish over 500. I think that's a complete embarrassment. And, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that I think they'll finish in third place just because this year, with there being rumors of Shohei Ohtani leaving, I think he'll definitely want to get his value up to the best he can, and I think he's going to go all out. You don't really see many guys, like I said, you want to call him Babe Ruth, go for it. You don't really see a guy who's going out there pitching on the mound and then hitting. It's unheard of. I mean, I couldn't even tell you the last time I've seen a guy pitch 6 innings, 7 innings, and then hit a home run to win them the game. I couldn't even tell you. Closest thing I could think of is DeGrom hitting a home run and then pitching 6 innings. That's like the closest thing I could think of, which is completely nothing. But yeah, I mean, looking at the Angels, obviously the two big guys are Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. Like you said, in terms of that rotation, you did add a decent starter in Tyler Anderson, who had a great year last year in the other side of California. And you also have a solidified lineup built around Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. You also brought in a couple interesting guys like Hunter Renfroe and Brandon Drury. I think those are going to be two big contributors to that lineup. You also have a couple other guys like Logan Hope, however you say his name, Max Stassi. You're loaded at the catcher position, so you can never have enough catching. But like I said, you have Brandon Drury. You have Gio Urshela still. I completely forgot they went for him. Jared Walsh, Hunter Renfroe, Taylor Ward. Taylor Ward actually had a pretty good season last year. Wasn't horrible. Also have Brett Phillips, decent guy there, Florida native. And then, of course, the big two in Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. But, when it comes to Anthony Rendon, talk about one of the worst contracts in baseball. This is a dude who had a multi-mega contract deal, and just, like you said, Blake, when he's on the field, he plays adequate. He plays to an extent close to that contract. But, I mean, how many games has the dude played the last 2 years? 50 combined. He's never on the field. This is a guy who was one of the best third basemen in the game. 2019, I would say he's the best third baseman in the game now. Then, of course, now he's not even in the top 25 because he's never out there. So I think it's a complete disgrace, complete embarrassment. Bullpen's pretty bad. They're ranked pretty low when it comes to their bullpen, and I think that's probably going to be really bad, and they probably won't get as far as they like to with that bullpen. The rotation isn't bad. The Angels go out there every single year and they put these mid starters up, or these AAA prospects who are en route to make their debut, and they just don't have the pitching. Like you said, you brought in Tyler Anderson, great, but then what? You're gonna get guys like Patrick Sandoval and Matt Moore. Bullpen's okay. Aaron Loup was not really as elite as he was in 2021. Of course, as a Met fan watching him, he was dominant in 2021. Wasn't like that last year, and that's that's expected. Of course, all relievers are guys you have to judge annually. One guy you can keep an eye out is Reed Detmers. He did have the no-hitter in 2021. I think he could be an interesting secret gem for him there. I don't think he'll be this elite guy, but I think he could be a nice little lefty southpaw in that rotation who I think could, make some oohing and eyeing moments. But I just think overall, this is a lineup. It's a nice lineup. Drury, Urshela, Walsh, Renfroe, Trout, Ward, Ohtani. But then what is the pitching going to do? So, yeah, I have the Anaheim Angels coming in third place at 79 and 83. Once again, missing the playoffs, and I think the Angels are going to trade Shohei Ohtani at the deadline.
Whoa. That took me a second. That's a lot of what the Shohei scenario turned out to be last year, though, so who knows? Yeah, I think we'll definitely have to tap into some Shohei free agency shows throughout the season, that's for sure. But yeah, to make one more point on the Angels, too, A, since you mentioned Brett Phillips, baseball's fun, But B, do you remember that game where Anthony Rendon hit the home run lefty because Reed Detmers was twirling a no-hitter and they were up like 13-0? He just went up there, hit a lefty home run. That's what the Angels could be, but they never have been. So I think that sums up them, Anthony, the pitching staff, all in a nutshell. There's just those couple quotes right there. Either way, moving on to my third place team in the American League West, we'll see how this prediction pans out versus one another. I have RJ Martz's Texas freaking Rangers finishing in third. I'm looking at some of their non-roster invites. As you said, they're a team that still has a very deep farm, has been spending a lot of money. They're already top 10 in payroll, just like that, in a matter of a couple years. So I'm looking at some of their top prospects that are still on their non-roster, and even some of the other guys that could make camp, and they're really some intriguing names like Danny Duffy that could, play an impact for them. They got, let's see, Justin Foscue, one of their prospects, Yoshimori Tsutsugo, Clint Frazier, Travis Jankowski, 2022 New York Met. So, oh wow, Marcell Ozuna just made another outfielder. That's not surprising whatsoever. Moving on. I really like what they did for the rotation this year. They added a lot of guys, and sure, some of them very injury prone. Yeah, but I think by the end of the year, you're going to see either Jack Leiter or Kumar Rocker or what's his name? What's the dude's name? I'm losing it all of a sudden. But they have three top prospects: Leiter, Ecker, or I think the top two that are drafted 2 years apart, both out of Vanderbilt, so teammates back in college. If I can think of the third name here, I know RJ is going to kill me watching this episode back on. I think it's
Leiter.
Reagans? No, it's not. Colwyn, Jack Leiter, Kumar Rocker. Like those guys all should be major league studs in the next coming years. So I understand some of the frightened. I think Jake Odorizzi is going to the bullpen. Like the bad years he had for two organizations that are World Series contenders last year, there's no way he's starting a game for Texas. Jake Odorizzi's moving to the bullpen. That's 1,000% sure. And I think Dane Dunning takes that last roster spot. I like the qualifying offer they gave to Martin Perez. He's had a couple career years down there in Texas, so he apparently loves playing there. I think he ends up getting another nice extension with another good year. John Gray, he had his first year out of Coors Field last year, and his ERA and all, the FIP, the Sierra, all his numbers dropped dramatically, which is good, for a pitcher leaving Coors and seeing the numbers come down in 1 year shows that they might have made a good move. Nathan Eovaldi, Jacob deGrom, if they're on the field, they're great. If they're not, you don't really get anything out of them. So is it not unlikely to say that they're going to end up having some injury issues in this rotation? I think you're completely blind to say no. But with the depth they built up, and the balanced schedule, not having to see Seattle and Houston 40 times a year, I think this team could be the Baltimore Orioles of last year, a team that made the huge jump. Now, the Orioles weren't spending as much as Texas has the last two off seasons, but I could see them in the same realm of possibility where they don't quite make the playoffs, but they'll be over 500, fighting until the end of the season, and it'll be an exciting story for the Dallas metro area. A couple other moves, like they got Will Smith out of the bullpen now, along with Jose Leclerc is finally coming back after like 2.5 years of injury, and he's looked great. So that's really good to see for the Rangers. Taylor Hearn. Of course, I forgot even to mention Andrew Heaney came over from the Dodgers. He looked a little shaky towards the end of the year last year, but I believe it's only a 1-year deal for him. So if he doesn't cut it, then shoot, it'll be more win and rocker season, that's for sure. Joe Barlow out of the bullpen. Haven't even got to the position prospects yet. They really like their future platoon with Jonah Heim and Sam Huff. Heim has a couple years on him as the switch hitter, better defensively behind the plate, but Sam Huff, for what it's worth, does not look like a bad backup catcher for the years to come. They got Ronald Acuna's younger brother, Ezekiel Duran, Josh Young, Nate Lowe, as you mentioned. You said you think he's going to be a breakout candidate this year. I think he's already broken out. I think he's already a borderline top 5 first baseman in the league based on the years he's put up the last 2 seasons. So I think that's only going to continue. Simeon and Seager going into year 2, as you said, they had shaky springs. Seager had a great July, which got him an All-Star game bid, but Simeon really turned it on for the last 4.5 months, but the first, 60 games of the season killed his season stat line. So you got to expect more from them over the next coming years. They paid him $300 million. Adolis Garcia, Mitch Garver to DH, at least for now. So Dustin Harris, they like out of the minors. If an injury were to happen in the infield, you plug him and play him almost anywhere. So, yeah, long story short, I really like what the Rangers did. And I think that they could be a team like Cleveland or a team like Baltimore where they might have a great year, surprise a lot of people. And it's only going to be the start of things. This isn't the end of the window. This isn't a 2-year thing where they have to go all in. I think this is going to be a team that gets really good over a long period of time. The only problem is the 2 teams ahead of them, which we're about to talk about, Seattle and Houston. So I'll turn it back over to you for your runner-up in the American League West.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a second place team that I think arguably can't be a first place team. I think there's going to be somewhat questions, and obviously that's the Seattle Mariners, and I have the Seattle Mariners going 94-68, finishing in second place. The Mariners are really trying to chase those Houston Astros right in front of them, and kind of has worked, kind of hasn't. Obviously, the Mariners have plenty of young talent that really has been helping them out. Obviously, taking a look at some offensive contributors, you look at the catcher position, you have Tom Murphy, Cal Riley, 2 decent catchers, moving around the field, the infield, J.P. Crawford, Ty France, Eugenio Suarez. Ty France has definitely made himself quite a name lately. Eugenio Suarez, great power bat. Otherwise, that's kind of his big value. So hopefully maybe he could try and get on base a little bit more. You brought in Colton Wong. I think that was a pretty underrated move. Great glove. Taking a look, the outfield, you got Teoscar Hernandez. Obviously, the Mariners acquired in this offseason, so I think he'll be a great addition. He'll be a great bat, over some power, line drives. That's what you need. You have A.J. Pollock. They also acquired him. Another nice move. You have the reigning AL Rookie of the Year in Julio Rodriguez, who because obviously I think I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes top 5 in the AL MVP voting. He's great with his glove, his bat. He'll hit you 30 home runs, bat 280, 800 plus OPS. Mediocre to great on base percentage. What is there not to like about him? A couple other guys, Jared Kelenic, he's going to have is pretty much make or break season. I think this is really going to be the year where is Kelenic the real deal, or was he kind of just the boss and the Mets won? So Mariners fans are definitely going to be keeping an eye out on him. Got Tommy La Stella also, New Jersey native. Moving to that rotation, I think this is a pretty decent rotation in my opinion. I mean, ideally, Castillo is going to be the number 1 starter, followed by Robbie Ray, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, and Marco Gonzalez. I mean, you have two guys and it's kind of like the Mets philosophy of having 2 older guys and then the rest, the 3, 4, and 5 starters or more younger guys or pre-arbitration guys. And I like that philosophy in baseball. You have Castillo and Robbie Ray, so you have a nice righty and then the southpaw coming in. Robbie Ray obviously wasn't quite what he was in that 2021 season, but I think still is a great pitcher. You have Logan Gilbert, who I wouldn't be surprised if he goes in the Cy Young voting this year. He's really been a breakout candidate. So that's an alumni. You have George Kirby. George Kirby is a guy who has been having a great spring training lately. He's been moving around with some of his pitches, kind of shuffling them up. He's been looking really good. He had a pretty decent season last year, nothing too crazy. It was a small sample size, of course, but he's a very consistent guy. He'll go out there, give you 25, 30 games last year, somewhere he ran around. Doesn't walk a lot of guys, pounds the strike zone very well, and that's what you rely on. He has a huge arsenal of pitches, so definitely keep an eye out on him. Of course, Marco Gonzalez. So you have, 3, 4, 5, some nice young guys. Moving over to the bullpen, I mean, you got a great bullpen, obviously, Paul Sewald and Chris Flexen. I mean, the Mariners made those guys great pitchers. I mean, they did something right. So, I think they could definitely carry. I think overall, this is going to be a very interesting year for the Seattle Mariners. They're in an interesting division. They made some great offseason acquisitions. They have one of the best ranked bullpens, one of the best ranked rotations. And I think their rotation is young. It is talented. And that pretty much just tells the story of really a playoff contending team. You have guys, like I said, Julio Rodriguez, who I think is obviously going to be an MVP caliber player. The Mariners are really going to be a scary team to face this year. And with that said, I want to put them in first, but I think that, the Astros, the team that's going to be ahead of them, is just going to be much better. So right now I have the Mariners finishing 94 and 68 in second place.
I don't think you're going to be very far off at all. 2 things that I think Seattle can hang their hat on last year is 2001 is no more. Like the curse, the drought, completely over. Cal Raleigh got into the playoffs. They upset the Blue Jays in a historic wild card series. And I know they got swept by the Astros, and maybe it was a little bit of overmanagement, but the series was so close for what it was worth. They had the Astros down to the end at all of game 1. They overmanaged, as you said, putting Robbie Ray, who didn't have a great year against Houston, or really anybody for that matter, in to face Jordan Alvarez, lefty, thinking they could get out of game 1. Psych. That ball was hit way out into the right center terrace, and that was game 1. Game 2, which, I'll talk about him in a second, Luis Castillo trade deadline trade, and they get the extension on him, so that looks really great. They were winning that game, I think, late innings, 6th or 7th, and Jordan goes the other way to the Crawford box as a game-winning home run. And talk about game 3, a 2-length game, 18 innings. Jeremy Pena hits a solo home run, and they won 1-0. So I know you got the Astros hat on, and I know that the series was a sweep, but that was a buzzsaw of a team, and I think Seattle played them as close as you can for a division rival and getting swept. But it truly was a very close series. The box score does not do it all the justice. Like, people look at Seattle saying, hey, they could be the second best team in the American League. Houston's just the first. But it goes back again to the balanced schedule thing, where now you see him 6 or 7 times less. That's 5 or 6 losses that might come off your record and make things a little bit easier for you to get things done. Julio Rodriguez broke out last year, was everything they wanted of him. I think what you said about Kellenic, his partner in crime, his Batman and Robin duo, is everything. We've said it a couple times. Like, this has to be his make or break season for Jared Kellenic. You see it from Julio. The Mets got the big deal with Diaz. I know, he won't be pitching this year, but overall, if he turns out to be not the guy, you're still going to get 4+ years after this of Edwin Diaz being debatably the best closer in baseball. So I think I'm sure teams want a win-win. Like, ultimately, you would be happy if Kellenic had success, and I'm sure Mariners fans, being all the way across the country, don't really care if Diaz is good or bad. So that's really the storyline to look out for. They kind of kept a couple of their guys that they like for the short term. Of course, when they had to trade away Ellie De La Cruz in the Luis Castillo trade, so they had to lock back in J.P. Crawford and Ty France to other deals, guys that play the middle infield depth. Colton Wong taking over for Adam Frazier. I believe that's an upgrade for him. You really know what you're getting out of Colton Wong at this point in time, so there'll be no surprises. AJ Pollock, a guy that could maybe DH. He doesn't have to play as much as he was back in Arizona during the prime of his career. Taylor Trammell, Tommy La Stella. It feels like the Giants and the Mariners made some delayed trades with exchanging all their depth guys. But yeah, as you mentioned, like, the rotation is deep. A lot of young guys. They paid Robbie Ray. They paid Luis Castillo. Like, you can count on those guys being there. Logan Gilbert, Chris Flexen, George Kirby, Paul Sewald, realistically, if half of those guys turned out being decent year to year, you got one of the best rotations in baseball. So what I do think is fun is they got Luis Castillo and they got former Tampa Bay legend Diego Castillo. So Castillo and Castillo, that's fun. I can tap into that. Matt Brash, Marco Gonzalez, like, the bullpen came on at the end of the year, and that's what helped them propel out of the dog days of death that they were swirling into. They look like they had another year of the drought headed towards their franchise, being that they were so far under 500 middle of June. They turned it around, made the playoffs, took the Astros to a hell round, and yeah, I expect this team to continue getting better and better over the years. But being that you do have Shohei and Trout in the division, being you do have the Rangers top 10 payroll and the loaded prospects in your division, and the 7-time consecutive ALCS appearance Houston Astros in your division, it's going to be tough. But I think they're excited for the challenge, and they're America's team, for crying out loud. So let's go M's, that's for sure. No surprises here. I think if this is a live bet, and it's usually a steal every year. And for anybody who's betting out there, and you see a steal for the Astros not winning the AL West, go ahead and take the bet. It's free money every year. So Hayden, I'll go to you. Who do you have winning the American League West? Is it your hat? I wonder. Is it the defending champions?
It is the reigning 2022 World Series champions, the Houston Astros. I mean, they said goodbye to a couple key pieces. Justin Verlander, obviously a big contributor to that. But then they also went out and they signed Jose Abreu to really complete that roster and to make the Astros the continuation of one of the best guys in the game. You unfortunately did lose Lance McCullers Jr. to a muscle strain. It's okay. You have plenty of other guys in depth. Hunter Brown, Jose Urquidy, Luis Garcia, Christian Javier, Framber Valdez, which pretty much sends the rotation to arguably a top 5, maybe top 7, 8 rotation in baseball. Of course, you have to consider the offense. This is a stacked offensive team, of course, taking a look-see at their roster. We go around the bases. Obviously, catcher, not crazy. Obviously, Martin Maldonado is getting up there in age. You'll probably look to one of your prospects to try and take over some more time at catching. But you move around the diamond. You got Jose Abreu. You got Jeremy Pena, Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman. Pretty good infield. Obviously, Jeremy Pena had a great season last year. I think he's capable of being definitely top. I think he could be a top 5 shortstop this year. I think if he has a great year, he can consider himself a top 5 shortstop. He had a great season last year for some power. The outfield, you got Kyle Tucker, Chas McCormick, 2 great additions there. You also have Michael Brantley, who probably wanted DH because just getting up there in age, and it's really not the best defensively. But also DH Jordan Alvarez, who I think Jordan Alvarez is I think he'll probably finish top three in the AL MVP this year. I think he can make a case for going against Judge and Otani. He's his power is insane. He's the reason they won the World Series. That game was it 4 or 5, game 5 or 6, whatever it was. He hit that go ahead 2-run homer or something like that. So his power is insane. He's a big dude. He's capable of hitting for some crazy pop. Um, you know, so I definitely think this is honestly, I think this is the best team in baseball. I probably could see them going something like, um, it's hard because obviously you are playing less games against the division rival, but then you're going to be playing more games against the Mets, the Braves, the Dodgers, the Padres. So with that said, I think the Astros are going to go. I think they're going to go 101-61.
That's still plenty enough for them to do damage, that's for sure. Like as you mentioned, they're going to be facing division rivals less, but I mean, the team that's been to the ALCS in the World Series, ALCS 7 years in a row. I think they've been to 5 World Series in the last 8 years. They were a team that's been through all the wars. And sure, I think the core from 2017 when all the scandal went down, you and I have given them their flowers saying that core was gone. Like you had 2 or 3 pieces left from that team last year. None of them were position players other than I think it was Gert Yuli, who of course is now gone, Altuve and Bregman, who both have had all great years since the 17 scandal. So, we made a point to say, hey, they might have won again, but it's been years. They cleaned up their name. The pitchers didn't do anything, so you really couldn't look at guys like Presley and Verlander and be like, ooh, and that factors. So, that World Series last year, if there was such an asterisk to their World Series name, I think they claimed it all back. I think they cleaned their name and they got their second, quote, title in World Series history. And who knows? At this pace, they're going to win at least a couple more within the next couple years. The American League is not as deep as the National League is. Let's not kid ourselves. But still, they've had to face some really good Yankees teams. Now the American League West is starting to catch up to them. They've maybe had a little bit of easier times going against teams like Minnesota and the White Sox over the last couple of years. I know they didn't. I don't think they've seen Cleveland in the postseason, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, they've had to fight some wars. They had to face a couple of 100-win Red Sox teams. They think they beat them once. Boston beat them once. So the balanced schedule thing, I don't think is really going to affect them too much because they just go out and win no matter who the opponent is. But yeah, man, I'll start out at the catcher position to do a little bit differently. You talked about how Martin Maldonado is getting up there in age. I really think they sacrifice his offense for defense. Like everybody else in that lineup can mash for power, for average, situationally, play hero ball. They can do it all, 1-8 or 1-7, and if they have a second leadoff hitter. I think you have Maldonado there just for getting pitch count up and to help your pitchers. Everybody loves pitching to the guy. I think he's best friends with Yadier Molina. Of course, they played on Team Puerto Rico together, and they were manager and teammate combo just a couple weeks ago. I really don't think there's a lot of worry about what Maldonado brings to the table. He's going to hit 180. He's going to walk every once in a while. He'll run into a couple singles or doubles, but his job is just to make sure that the Astros have the best pitching they can that day and that he just moves the line along. So, he's probably only going to play another year or two, but why would he retire? He's having fun winning every year. So, I understand it from that point. Corey Lee, I think, is still considered a prospect at this point in time. So, if there was a guy to pass the torch to, it would be him. But yeah, dude, they were the best team in baseball. They still are, rightfully so, and they freaking added Jose Abreu. They took the White Sox heart and soul for a 3-year deal. Very good monetary value. So that's crazy to think about. Of course, you got Bregman, Pena, Altuve, and Michael Brantley are going to be starting the year on the injured list. I think Brantley is more healthy than Altuve. Altuve had it right the first time. Brantley is a lot closer to being back. Of course, Altuve's injury just happened, but those are two guys that are going to get back probably by month of May. You should have both of those guys back. Jesus, can't talk. But you kind of brought up the DH debate. Like, do you DH Yordan? I think Michael Brantley is definitely the guy to DH if both healthy, because while Yordan's stature is, not the easiest to play out there in the field, you don't want him to risk injury. When he's played left field, he has not been this horrible OAA, DRS, red flag out there. He's been a solid left fielder for what it's worth. He's made the plays. He's made a couple great cutoffs, gotten some guys out. Not hurt himself. I think he almost did one time in a game at Citi Field. But other than that, like, if you have him and Michael Brantley splitting left field reps and DH reps, I think that's a win-win. I think any team would take that combo. Michael Brantley is a straight up hitter, and so is Jordan. Kyle Tucker, I think, is definitely the most underrated player in baseball. A lot of people say it. I know what his true value is. I'm sure you do. You do too, Hayden. Dude's a stud. Chaz McCormick, good defense up in center field. Had a pretty good offensive year last year. The Chaz Chomp, he's one of their best locker room guys. Um, Jeremy Pena had a great rookie year. You expect him to only build on that going into the future. And now getting into their pitching pool. A couple years ago, they had a core of Garrett Cole, Dallas Keuchel, Justin Verlander, and Zach Greinke. Those days are gone, but they've since replaced it with Framber, Luis, Christian, Jose, like McCullers even, who's a lot younger than the guys that have left the system. They are still an absolute unit. And I'm sure the Mets are happy that they took Verlander and said, you know what, you'll be fine without him, and we'll take him with the loss of the loss of Jacob. So win-win, hopefully, if so. But I don't know, dude. I just don't know how you can't not pick against this team. They're a team that is definitely still on paper, at least still got to play the games, but on paper is the best team in baseball. I mean, out of the bullpen, you're shoving Maton, you're shoving Montero, you're shoving Hector Neris, failed closer in Philadelphia, has now found a nice role for him in the setup options up in or down in the Lone Star State. Forrest Whitley, one of their top prospects, is about to make his way to the majors. You might see him twirl a couple times this year. Hunter Brown, Brian Abreu, Ryan Presley. I mean, if Clase with Edwin Diaz being out for the season, I don't think it's a crazy take to say behind Clase that Presley might be the second best closer in baseball with how dominant he is, how many opportunities he gets, the high pitch counts he goes through and gets the win 90% of the time, it seems. So I mean, yeah, he twirled for Team USA in their runner up WBC run. But yeah, I think that's enough AL West talk. Let's transition to the National League now, about the halfway point in the show. Going from first place back to the bottom dwellers. Hayden, who do you got? I think I have an idea. And is it Rocky Mountain High?
Yeah, coming in at fifth place in the National League West, I have the Colorado Rockies going 58 and 104. I mean, this is the team that took a roster that had talent and then just made it with literally nothing. I mean, this was a team, 6-7 years ago that, not even that, maybe 3-4 that had guys like Nolan Arenado and Trevor Story and DJ LeMahieu, and kind of all put that up in smoke. They have one of the worst ownerships and organizations in baseball. We talk about the Athletics and the Reds. Throw the Rockies in that mix. They're a cheap organization. And yeah, they just have not really had much going. Taking a little look-see at that roster in terms of offensive contributors, you have some good power guys. I mean, take it with a grain of salt. Colorado, Coors Effect, ooh, okay. But CJ Cron, he's a pretty good guy. He's capable of hitting some missiles. He could pimp, maybe 30, 35 home runs, maybe. You have Ryan McMahon, Brendan Rodgers. Moving to the outfield, you have Charlie Blackmon, who's getting up there in age, so we'll see how many more years he has left. They signed Jurickson Profar. That was a pretty decent signing there, 1-year deal. You got Randall Grichuk, Jonathan Daza. You also have Chris Bryant. And talk about a contract and a player. I mean, that dude barely played last year, and he played maybe like a dozen games there, and we'll see how he does in Colorado, being the lone, really only talented guy in a roster going nowhere. In terms of pitching, you have Daniel Bard, who's somewhat mid. You signed Brent Suter. I like him because he gave me a baseball and he signed one for me. Jose Urena, then Nelson Lamet. Wouldn't be surprised if they trade him away. Kyle Freeland. Herman Marquez, I think he's kind of a big guy. I'm surprised he hasn't gotten traded yet. I mean, overall, when it comes to the Rockies, they're going to go on to another straight losing season. I mean, if Chris Bryant could stay healthy, if CJ Cron could hit home runs, likewise for McMahon, otherwise I just don't really see much with this team. There's really not much to say. So I've been finishing in fifth place, going 58 and 104.
That's not what the owner thinks. He thinks they're going to play 500 ball, which is 33 games better than what you're for some reason predicting. I don't, maybe there's some. I no, Hayden's right. He's wrong. Couple of non-roster invites that are a little interesting. You mentioned the Jerks and Profar signing, which I don't know why he waited out so long to then sign in Colorado. That was, I guess, his decision. That's on him. But whatever. Moving on. You got Mike Moustakas, Cole Tucker, two guys that if they make the roster could be a boost to trade or for meaningless wins throughout this season. Zach Veen, really top prospect, 2001 baby. Looks like he's going to be an absolute stud here in the near future in the major league. So I'll be interested to see if he gets his call up at some point this year. Now moving over to their active roster. There's been a little slow tonight, guys. Sorry about that if we've been lagging. That is why. They have the two United States roster men, Kyle Freeland and U.S. Harris. Just kidding, of course. Daniel Bard. If you know, you know. Herman Marquez, we've talked about a guy that probably should have been traded 2 or so years ago now, a guy that they probably could have topped out value for, but now that he's rotted away a couple of his service time years in Coors, had a couple big years on his arm, might not have the top value, but the Rockies have just been known to not be the smartest front office. You talked about it. They paid Chris Bryant all this money to not play a lot last year, but at the same time traded away Nolan Arenado for nothing, got mad. The fans were, of course, mad at it. Then they said, you know what? We're not going to trade Trevor Story. We're not even going to offer him anything. He can walk to Boston, and while he didn't have a great year last year for them, they still could have got something for the guy. So then for them to go pay Chris Bryant with the same money made no sense to me. But that's the Rockies, future in a nutshell. So, I mean, if Daniel Bard's your closer, Mr. Yips himself, that you're not going that far. Brad Hand has found a home there, at least for a couple months. Brent Suter, as you said. Dylan Lamet is an interesting candidate because he was once regarded as a top prospect for San Diego, a team that was up and coming. Never got the innings. It gets traded to Milwaukee, and everybody's like, oh, okay. And the Josh Hader deal saying, you know what? Maybe he finds himself in the pitching laboratory, which is Milwaukee. It gives me big red flags if the Rockies quickly turned around and DFA'd a guy that got in the Josh Hader trade, a former top prospect pitcher, and now he's pitching in Coors Field. That tells me a lot about where Dylan Lamet is at, and I don't think there's really a lot more to tap in there. I think his potential is far gone. We talk about how it's make or break years for guys like Joe Adell and Jared Kelenic. Well, Dylan Lamet's 3 years gone. So that's unfortunate for him, but life does move on. CJ Cron is on a contract here. I think he's going to get paid this offseason if he has another big year in Coors, which, as you said, we are expecting. Brendan Rodgers, sure, was fun to watch last year. Michael Toglia, the Georgia baby, a rookie, was excited to see him do some things at the end of last year. Talked about Chris Bryant and Profar. Randall Grichuk came over in the Raimel Tapia trade before opening day last year, and it looks like Charlie Blackmon at this point in time is probably just going to end up retiring with Rocky. I think he's happy where he's at. And, the Georgia Tech graduate himself, Chuck Nasty. I wouldn't be surprised if he did. I think this is, age 37-year-old season. He'll turn 37 before the All-Star break, so maybe he turns it out and makes another All-Star. He was a guy that used to be a constant All-Star game performer, but the last couple years, injuries and age have caught up to him, so has the team performance, and his name has since faded. But who knows? That could all change once again. But yeah, I think that's probably the most we're ever going to talk about the Rockies for the length of the season. And to the Rockies fans, if you're listening, we would love to, but your owner's altering us to do that. Now might be our second debate of the show, because I think I have one team. I'll be surprised if you have another or not. Hayden, who is your fourth place team in the National League West? I think it'll be very close between fourth and third.
Yeah, you know what? Call me crazy. We'll go with a little bit of a hot take. I have the San Francisco Giants. I have the San Francisco Giants coming in fourth place in the National League West. Taking a look at the Giants, and obviously, you probably could assume who my third place team is going to be, but I'm going to get into that a little bit afterwards. This Giants team, like I said, I have them finishing in fourth place. I think they'll go something around the lines of 76 and 86, so essentially 10 games, just under 500 is what I anticipate the Giants doing this year. The roster's fine. It definitely lacks a lot of excitement, but it makes up for it with one of the deepest depth charts in the league. You have a solid rotation. 1 through 5 makes the Giants look somewhat adequate. But I really do think the upside is very limited. Uh, Taking a look at the offense, you got Joey Bart. This will probably be a big year for him. Posey hasn't been there anymore. Last year, Bart really had to step up. We'll see if this is going to be the year. You got some guys like Brandon Crawford. He's up there in age. Wilmer Flores, up there in age. Got JD Davis, Michael Conforto. I think they could be interesting guys to see how they go. Ken Conforto, get back to what he used to be. He hasn't played baseball in a year. And obviously, the last time he did, he was not very good. JD Davis is a guy who I think could definitely hit for some power, use that opposite field. He could hit a lot of triples this year because of his opposite field power and hit a lot of balls into triples alley. You signed Mitch Haniger. I think that is a really interesting guy. He could hit for some power. Jock Peterson, we'll see if he'll have another year. Austin Slater, Lamont Wade Jr. I like Mike Yastrzemski. He hasn't really been this great offensive contributor, but good with the glove. Pitching wise, you got a decent squad in terms of pitching staff. Logan Webb, Alex Wood, Taylor and Tyler Rogers. So that'll be cool to see them. Sean Manaea, Jackson, Anthony Desclafani, Alex Cobb. But I don't know. I just look at this team and, personally, we all know 2021 was kind of a one-year wonder type thing for them. Obviously, this was a team that consisted of a lot of big veteran pieces, and I still think they do. And I just don't think they're going to have the whole lot of energy and athleticism that they had the last 2 years. And what we saw last year, I think that's the real Giants. I get it. You brought in a couple guys like Conforto, like JD Davis, like Mitch Haniger. But unfortunately, I just don't see them being any sort of contention or dangerous team. I think they're a lineup that hits for a low average. I couldn't tell you it. You could probably Google it where they rank in terms of average and on base percentage, but they're a team that doesn't rank very high in average. I can tell you that. So, yeah, I have them finishing in fourth place. I don't really think they're that great of a ball club. So, yeah.
Um, I talked to my fourth place team, of course, is the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I've talked about them and the Marlins in the same category where it's a young might benefit these might be the two teams that benefit. Well, as you said before, Hayden, and I'm starting to use it as my own catchphrase. You can't choose your family. The Diamondbacks are a team that's very young, and if everything goes, and for the Giants, as you said, if everything doesn't go, as you said last year, was a little bit more of what was for them combined to what they were in 2021. The Diamondbacks could easily overtake the Giants for third place in the National League West. I really like their future, quite honestly, and I'm looking at some of their non-roster invites, including former Mets reliever Uris Familia. They got, nobody else in the pitching department that I don't think I know of, at least. If Buddy Kennedy, Jordan Lawler, a couple prospects of theirs. Devison De Los Santos, a 2003 baby. Dude's 4 months older than me, and he's in a major league roster. That's crazy. That shows you where we're at in our careers, Hayden, where we're at. But talk about a pitching rotation. That's honestly not that bad. The Bumgarner contract didn't look great at first, but he's kind of around the last year or so. You maybe get one more good year out of mentoring some of the younger. I know he's a lefty, but he's still able to at least rub off a little bit on the guys like Zach Davies, Merrill Kelly. Zach Gallen, I think, is a dark horse for the National League Cy Young this year. So I really like the rotation where they're going there. Bullpen honestly doesn't look that bad either for, the guy. They picked up a couple veterans to add, including Andrew Chafin, who loves it in Arizona, came back, Joe Mansupply, Miguel Castro, Mark Melanson, who famously dipped out of Atlanta wanting to go back west a year before we won the World Series, so that's a mistake on him. Corbin Martin and company. The catchers is where it's the most interesting, at least from what I'm seeing so far, because they got Carson Kelly in that Nolan Arenado trade, and they got 3/4 of a good year out of him. Since then, he has been nothing of a major league caliber catcher, and that's why they won out and made the trade with the Blue Jays to get star prospect catcher Gabriel Moreno. doing that, it definitely benefits their lineup. You also got another veteran in the room, Evan Longoria, might be the last year of his career, so good to see him go out with some of the young talent and rub off. Christian Walker, I think, hit close to 40 home runs last year, if I'm not mistaken. You got to expect him to try to do that again in the Humidor Park that they play in Chase Field. Of course, they just paid Alec Thomas a couple days ago. Big contract for him. We'll see if it pays off. If so, that's an absolute steal. Kyle Lewis, I'd like to pick up. Corbin Carroll, or was it Corbin Carroll that they paid? It was one of the two. Um, so the future in the outfield looks really good for Arizona. So the reason I do have them fourth place is, as of right now, the Giants do have the better roster. But as you said, they're a team that's been known to be up and down, a team that always underperforms or overperforms. They're never on paper. They never play to their level on paper, and the Diamondbacks are a team that could surprise us like Baltimore and Cleveland last year, where the talent goes, it clicks, they're winning games, they're having fun, and it turns out to be a really good summer for the Phoenix area. So yeah, I didn't even mention they also got Lourdes Gurriel in that trade. So their outfield looks really good. Third base might be a little bit of a hole. Ketel Marte, I think, is finally back at second base full time. So as of right now, I do have them fourth place, but I would not be surprised if I'm wrong and you end up looking like the smart man in this scenario, picking the Giants in this position. Your turn. Diamondbacks for Hayden around the clock.
Yeah, so coming in at third place, I have the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I have them going 83-79. So a couple games over 500. They're another team that is going to rise this season. 2021, they lost 120. Lost 110 games in 2021, and last season, I think they they were borderline 500. So you practically won 20 games extra in the span of a year. You don't see that a whole lot. And last year they really started to show that they have a young, nice core of pitching and offensive contributors. Like you said, they brought in a couple guys like Evan Longoria, and boom, and I think you're able of playing 500 baseball. They improved by 22 wins. Okay, interesting to see. But taking a little time around the roster. You have Carson Kelly, Gabriel Marino. Obviously, they picked him up from the Blue Jays, so one of the top catching prospects in MLB. In terms of the infield, you have Nick Ahmed, Ketel Marte, Josh Rojas, Christian Walker, and Evan Longoria. I think Christian Walker's capable of hitting 30 home runs. In terms of the outfield, you have Lourdes Gurriel Jr., great addition, Jake McCarthy, Alex Thomas, Pavin Smith, Kyle Lewis. I think he could be a little interesting, sneaky guy. Can he get back to what he could be? And then Corbin Carroll, who I think with a pretty good chance of winning the National League Rookie of the Year this season. I think he is definitely capable of it. He's a 5'2" athlete. He has the speed. He has the glove. He has the bat. He's just overall an elite player, and I think he's going to win Rookie of the Year. In terms of their pitching, yeah, it definitely does lack a whole lot of depth. I think, obviously, Zach Gallen is a Cy Young favorite. He's elite. What he's been doing lately, I think he's capable of it. You move down a little bit. You got guys like Merrill Kelly, Madison Bumgarner, Zach Davies. So nothing too crazy, but I definitely think you're going to lead in with, obviously, Zach Gallen. I think he's going to have a phenomenal season once again. And I think the two big guys to keep an eye on are Corbin Carroll and, of course, Zach Gallen. But, yeah, I just think that they are going to have an interesting season. Really no reason stated behind that. So, like I said, 83-79.
To speak on the Giants, who are my third place team, I'm going to pretty much echo a lot of the same points you made because I think you summed it up beautifully. I guess I'll start with the rotation, being that it doesn't look as strong as it did a couple of years ago. DeSclafani, Kevin Gausman, breakout Logan Webb. A couple of those pieces are gone. You still got Logan. You still got Alex Wood and Desco, but they just didn't perform like they did 2 years ago. Of course, Carlos Rodon came in post-lockout, got himself a big deal in the Bronx, walked out the door. You're going to need a lot more out of this rotation. I don't think you can trust Ross Stripling and Sean Manaea based on the years they had last year if you want to go far. And that's if you're the San Francisco Giants. paying all this money that they do in this market. This is a team that doesn't like to rebuild. They're kind of like the Red Sox in a way where they don't want to rebuild. At worst, they're going to be a competitive team. And that's why you see a lot of the inconsistencies out of them. I really want Camilo Duvall to take that next step this year at the closing, in the closing role. A guy that was really just handed the keys in the end of their historic 2021 season. It was okay with the appearances he had last year and improved last year, but going into year 3 in that role, you want to see a jump up. And I think the biggest issue he's had so far is he seems a little calm out there in the 9th inning. For a young guy, you want that young adrenaline, you want that testosterone, you want that drive to punch out the side, to get an immaculate inning, shut the door. And they haven't seen that out of the guy yet, so maybe they're trying to tap into that later this year. The Rogers brothers, it's fun to see them twirl it out there, the submarine and the lefty. They got the slider man and Luke Jackson coming over from Atlanta, healing from Tommy John. He's looking to have a good year as well out of that bullpen. Joey Bart, as you said, no longer is Posey there in the shadow or even there in the organization at all. It's his team. It's his opportunity. No more veterans in front of him like a Kurt Casale. It's his job to lose. They still got late night Lamont. JD Davis played with a little bit of a pep in his step after the Darren Ruff trade last year. And I wonder if he had anything to do with them bringing in your guy, Michael Conforto. If there was any connection to the Giants, of course, trying to see if they have any magic in him left. Brandon Crawford, probably his last year in the league. They brought back Jock Peterson on the qualifying offer. He had a really nice year, had some bombs in the McCovey Cove. You got Carl Yastrzemski's grandson, of course, Mike, in his 30s now. So interesting to see if he's able to do what he did a couple years ago for them, along with Tyler Estrada, Austin Slater. I mean, the Giants are just a team that platoons you to death. And maybe they're another team that benefits from the balanced schedule. But as you said, like 2021 was about as high as they could get. And last year was about even worse. It was even worse than them coming back down to earth. It was almost like they added after that 2021 season and everything went wrong. And I don't know if this is a 90-win club at all, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did have a losing record. I think it could be 81 on the nose again. But I think these are two completely different teams, Arizona and San Francisco. One's in this trajectory, age-wise, future-wise. The other one's in the shaky position of they don't know if they're rebuilding, if they're a win-now team. And it'll be interesting to see over the summer. This is an MLB TV late-night matchup that I'll be watching almost every time they play. The Old Men Giants versus the upcoming future of Arizona. That'll be a fun baseball watch to see in the late nights, that's for sure, this summer. So I guess now we get to the most exciting topic behind Seattle and Houston, equally maybe on this side of town for the National League. Hayden, who is your National League West runner-up?
Yeah, so coming in second place for the National League, I have the San Diego Padres. I think the Padres are definitely one of the best lineups in baseball. Their rotation can leave a couple of questions, sure, and I will get over that. But I think if their arms could stay healthy, I think they are definitely a World Series contention team. I mean, right now, looking at that lineup, you obviously have the new Xander Bogaerts mixed in with Manny Machado, Ha-Seong Kim, Jake Cronenworth. Obviously, Fernando Tatis Jr. will be coming back, so we'll see what kind of role he gets played in. Outfield, probably center field, right field. We'll see how we could acclimate out there. You have Juan Soto, Trent Grisham, Matt Carpenter, Jose Azocar, Nelson Cruz. Decent guys there. We'll see if Soto can do some MVP-like caliber things in San Diego. The rotation, I definitely do have a couple questions with. Obviously, Darvish is up, and it is up there in age. He's 36. But then you still got Joe Musgrove. Is Blake Snell going to get back to what he used to be? He hasn't really panned out so far in San Diego yet. He brought in Michael Wacha, Ryan Weathers, nice young prospect. A couple guys in the bullpen could consist of Seth Lugo, Josh Hader. Can he kind of reform to what he was in his first half Brewers South? So, yeah, Padres, I think, are a great ball club. I think they got great team offensively that could hit first power, on base percentage, average. And, yeah, I mean, they're a team that spends a lot. Yeah, I mean, I see why people could think they're a first-place team. But, yeah, right now I have them in second place in the National League West, going 98-64.
I'm going to be on the opposite side of this hot take. And over 162 games, the Dodgers were definitely the better team last year for sure. They beat them by what, 23 or 24 games in the National League West last year. But the Padres got them when it mattered, and that series, box score wise, I think is the opposite of the Seattle Houston one. I think San Diego dominated. And they added what? They basically added Fernando back for free this offseason. They added, I mean, I'll talk about the Padres in just a minute. I got the Dodgers having their second place finish in 3 years in the National League West, and I think it's going to be extremely close. Being that over 162 games, you still have to trust this team to be really good. San Diego hasn't really proven it yet. But I mean, the Dodgers did a lot this offseason to get themselves out of the luxury tax. And we talked about it before. And I think that's why maybe their roster talent has come back down, or maybe they're finally deciding to trust that top farm system they've had for 4 or 5 years while winning 100 plus games. To start it off in the rotation, of course, Kershaw continues to come back on these 1-year friendly year deals. When healthy, he's still one of the best pitchers in baseball. He just hasn't been the always reliable, healthy guy that he was during his 20s and early 30s. Julio Urias is a guy that I'm going to be watching a lot at the beginning of the year because he had a great year last year, but the numbers showed a lot of red flags, a lot of hard contact that he got out of, a lot of numbers that didn't translate well to other higher statistic stats. Gotcha, Hayden. So for Julio Urias, I will be watching him a lot through his month of April and May starts because I want to see if the calculator was right, saying that he's due for a down year, he's due to come back down to earth, or if he says, screw that, I'm going to continue shoving because I'm the ace that I have been, called. So that's something I'll be looking at. I do believe last year was the Tony Gonsolin breakout year. I think this year is the Dustin May. Let me restart. Last year was the Tony Gonsolin breakout year. I do think this is the year that Dustin May does the same. Carrot Top, as my mom likes to refer to him as. I think that he's a guy that is finally healthy, overcame his Tommy John surgery, and I think he is ready to shove, along with, I'm not even mentioning Bobby Miller and Gavin Stone, and even Michael Grove are right there in AAA playing for Oklahoma City. They're going to be up there making some starts this year. Walker Buehler, you don't know as of right now if he's going to be back from his Tommy. I believe he had Tommy John. He had some sort of dead arm last year, so interested to see what happens in camp with him. I don't think he's going to be pitching as of now. Dodgers bullpen, while it doesn't have a lot of the flashy names it's had the last couple of years, it's trust in the youth, and you got to respect it. Treinen and Firestone are, of course, hurt, but if healthy, they'll get them back at some point this year. Those are basically 2 trade deadline acquisitions that are going to be eating great innings for them. Phil Bickford had a great year last year. Same with Alex Vesia. The lefty continues to throw. Shelby Miller, interesting to see him in the bullpen role, along with Brusdar Graterol, who throws 100 without even trying. Daniel Hudson is a guy, it's the closing spot for him to lose, Evan Phillips. Evan Phillips' his job to lose, but Daniel Hudson can also close out games for you if needed. He did a lot for them last year during Craig Kimbrell's roller coaster ride. You got maybe the best catcher platoon in baseball with Will Smith and Austin Barnes. Of course, they played against each other in that historic USA-Mexico game about a week or two ago now. My guy, Freddie Freeman, manning first base. Chris Taylor coming back off, I think, probably his worst year since being traded to LA, but still a super utility man, along with Miguel Rojas, now lining up the middle because Gavin Lux, of course, tore his ACL. So no Gavin Lux at all this year. David Peralta, Trace Thompson still there for some outfield depth, along with Jason Hayward, who's currently slotted to make the opening day lineup. But I believe that James Outman is the next big deal for the prospect-wise for the Dodgers. So I'm believing I'm drinking the Dustin May Kool-Aid, Hayden. I'm drinking the James Outman Kool-Aid, and I'll be interested to see what they do. I haven't even mentioned Mookie Betts yet. So it shows you even when the Dodgers are looking at it as a down year, they're still going to be a team that wins close to 100 games. I just think that them going out of the luxury tax is going to come back to bite them with how much the Padres are now spending simultaneously. So agree to disagree. I want to hear what you have to say now about the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah, so first place, I have the Los Angeles Dodgers, who I still think is one of the best teams in baseball. I get it. You lost Drake Turner, Justin Turner, Cody Bellinger, and a couple other big key additions in that mix. But I still think they are one of the best teams in baseball. Obviously, yeah, the losses outweigh the additions. You brought in JD Martinez, David Peralta, and Noah Syndergaard. Still have elite management. But, taking a little dive around their roster, you have Freddie Freeman. Unfortunately, Gavin Lux is going to miss the season, but you still have Freddie Freeman in the infield. Obviously, Max Muncy, he's going to have a big role to play this year. Can Max Muncy get back to his old self? We'll see. He's really going to be a big key piece. Probably play some time at third, but probably second base considering his injuries. So maybe he'll play some time at second, maybe third. He's going to be a big key to being successful. So yeah, you got him. You got Mookie Betts, Chris Taylor, David Peralta, JD Martinez, a couple other guys in that mix. Pitching wise, they got a good pitching staff. I think it's decent. Julio Urias, Clayton Kershaw still rolling around. I agree with you. I think Dustin May is going to have a breakout season, big time. A couple other guys like Evan Phillips, Ryan Pepiot. I think those two guys are going to have big seasons. Tony Gonsolin, I think, is going to have another big season too, like last year. The Dodgers are just, they're a team that you saw what they did last year. They called up guys like Trace Thompson and Zach McKinstry, and they just came into clutch and just did what they needed to do. And I think the Dodgers are capable of that. They have one of the best farm teams in baseball, and I think they're going to continue that this year. And I have them coming in first place, winning 101 games and losing 61. So, like I said, when it's the Dodgers, I'm not going to sit here and give a long analysis. They're a good team. They've proven it. It's likewise for the Padres. This is going to be a division that's going to be determined by 5 games. I could even see it like that. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting year. Dodgers, first place, 101, 61.
Fair enough, indeed. Two guys I guess I didn't quite mention were Max Muncy. As you said, is a guy that has to have a complete bounce-back campaign if the Dodgers do want to win the National League West. They did arbitrate him another contract, so maybe the Dodgers believe that he will be back to what he was before he had that whole hand issue at the end of 2021, basically haltering his whole season last year. Maybe Freddie coming in and playing a lot of first base also didn't really give him the full opportunity to come back. So we'll see if that continues or if he does bounce back to what he was. And JD Martinez, a contract that was very friendly for the Dodgers, 1 year. If it works, they're going to give him a second deal until he retires more than likely. I think he'll probably fall in love playing out there if they're winning. So yeah, I think the losses do outweigh the additions, but does the loss also equate to 23 games in standings? I'm predicting yes. But if I'm wrong, hey, it's hard to predict everything right in any sport. So we'll see. But yeah, my team taking the National League West crown is, of course, first of all, Hayden. Here's your picks displayed as so. And likewise for me, I have the San Diego Padres. I'm drinking their Kool-Aid. If I look like an idiot along with them and the Blue Jays, I had to mix it up a little bit for content, of course. I look like an idiot, but I'm looking at the rotation. You got Darvish. As you mentioned, Blake Snell needs to come back to the form he has been. He is getting the opening day start, so that's a good thing for them to see. If they find a way to extend him and Juan Soto, like they have their core locked in for years. They still have a little bit of a farm system. We talked about that. Nick Martinez looked okay in his outings with the United States. Michael Wacha had a good year in Boston last year. He's your 4. I think that's a very reliable 4 to have for a team that's trying to win a World Series. I wonder if they'll make Seth Lugo the starter that the Mets tried to make him a couple years ago if he goes back into the bullpen. Brent Honeywell is a very interesting name because he's a guy that was supposed to be this dominant closer, 6 or 7 years ago. Before all the injuries kind of came in and ruined his career. But the Padres are giving him a shot. He's a guy I'm going to be watching and rooting for this summer to see if he finally finds a home in San Diego. Josh Hader, of course, came over in the big trade, had a very, very, very bad month of August, but a very, very good month of September, if that makes any sense. And, of course, had 3 saves, or 4 if you include the National League Championship lone win they had. I mean, bullpen-wise, Chris Matt, Baseball Reference really loves him, and we'll see if he continues to do what he did last year, along with Drew Pomeranz, Tim Hill. They got rid of some of the guys that didn't really need to be there long-term. Position player-wise, they didn't retain Jorge Alfaro. They're instead running with the prospect Luis Campusano, along with Aaron Nola's other brother, Austin. The middle infield is just a freaking crazy mess. I mean, Jake Cronenworth was an all-star last year. He was platooning with Ha-Seong Kim. You don't know if you're going to have room for both of them. They're platooning both Hall of Famers Nelson Cruz and Matt Carpenter. So when Fernando comes back at the end of April, we'll be very interested to see if he is gonna. I think they announced that he's gonna be in right field. Soto's gonna be in left, which I think makes the most sense. Soto arm maybe is the better translator for right field. Soto has played left field in his career and has played it well. Xander Bogaerts, the X-Man, former Boston Red Sox, using the accent there, 13 years, is going to be the guy. They also panicked and locked in Manny Machado, which ultimately might end up being the worst decision in the world. We'll see how it turns out in 5 years from now. Trent Grisham, while he doesn't hit much, is a gold glove guy that they can put in center field, stabilizes the lineup. I guess he's the Martin Maldonado of the San Diego lineup if you were to translate anything. Adam Engel is a fun guy to, I don't know, see if he taps into anything off the bench. So yeah, this is a team that's going World Series balls to the wall. And if they don't win it within the next couple of years, whether that's going through the National League West title route or through the wild card series, it'll be a fail with all the money. Because you got to think they're still going to try to extend Snell and Soto. They still got prospects who I mentioned, including another middle infield prospect in Jackson Merrill. So if the Padres don't end up extending those guys and not even coming close to a World Series appearance-wise or crown-wise, this will be a failed experiment if the Dodgers keep running him over and they don't get the success they're looking for in the playoffs. So I'm sure that they're praying, the owners at least, that they finally open their pocketbook and it doesn't, rear its ugly head back in its face. But yeah, I think that's all of our off-season shows are now over, Hayden. We got less than a week to opening day. We're recording this on Friday night, the 24th. I know you're about to head out to the Stetson town. So, I guess before you go, I'll ask you one more question about the USA-Japan game, since, this is probably our last chance to talk about the World Baseball Classic. Did you like the movie-style ending of Shohei versus Trout? Do you think the better team won? I mean, just give me your overall analysis on that game. I think where it was lost is the U.S. was 0-7 with runners in scoring position, and I think Japan had the better team. But I want to hear it from your point of view.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really catch much of the World Baseball Classic. I did watch some of that game in the library, of course. The final game, of course. Definitely scripted. Ohtani striking out his teammate, Mike Trout. Great game. Unfortunately, Team USA couldn't win. But, hey, listen, now just time for regular baseball, the actual MLB that people care about. So I think it was a great way to expand the game. But, yeah, I think it was a very symbolic moment.
For me, I loved it. I thought that was so entertaining. So it's really I haven't been able to watch a lot of March Madness because of it, because it's hard to follow both of the tournaments at the same time. The one thing that I like is it's coming back in 3 years, so they're getting back onto a normal schedule. But I mean, yeah, Jeff McNeil and Pete Alonso had a couple big hits in that game for your guys. So we'll see. I mean, Trey Turner probably should have won the MVP if the United States was able to clutch up. But again, I think Japan had a better team, and the better team won on that night. But honestly, I don't know. I think it's gonna make April baseball kind of boring. Like for me as a diehard fan, I'm sitting here watching these playoff type games, and now I'm turning around and I'm watching the Braves and the Red Sox right now. It's a completely different environment. So it'll be interesting to see how the translation is. But I'm excited for opening day. I know we'll maybe have one more off-season show to recap the spring training competitions and the remaining labor stuff like the Profar contract, and if anybody from the WBC signs another deal like they had during the tournament. But yeah, I'll definitely talk to you at some point this week, man. We'll get our regular season format, and guys, we're less than a week away. So what you planning on doing tonight?
Yeah. Well, any second now I'm gonna be heading out, going to some events. And pretty excited for it. So it's going to be a great season. We'll probably have one more stream, I think, probably early in the week before Thursday. And yeah, that's all I got for me. Let's ride, baby.
I want to do a Wednesday night stream, opening night, Eve preview, talk about all the labor, and maybe opening day predictions. I don't know. That could be fun. All right. Well, I'll let you go, man. It was fun talking to you guys tonight. For all our viewers out there, whatever platform you're on, if you made us to this point, we thank you so much. Hayden and I are signing off, and we hope you guys enjoy your weekend. March Madness, XFL, I guess, and baseball for real, a real sport back in the swing of things, along with NHL and NBA playoffs. So it's a great time to be a sports fan. That's for damn sure. And we'll talk to you guys here in less than a week. So